This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Penn, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fan, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome today to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fan, the Preacher Man. And today my co-host, Shannon E. Jones, is all set, but he'll come back. He's going to talk to you in a little bit because he got a pre-recorded message just for you. Now, this program today, we're going to be dealing with, again, gerrymandering and the importance of gerrymandering. As you know, many of across the country, U.S. capitals, state representatives, and senators are redrawing district lines. It's going to determine who your representative is going to be and what area you will be voting from. You need to understand the importance of gerrymandering. The census is important because it gives account of the number of people in a certain area. And when they draw the district maps, in terms of who will represent you, you need to know how that's done and fully understand how it's done. Have you ever gone to the poll and you had a one poll and then they move you to another poll and you ask yourself, I used to vote here, but now I'm voting here and it's just down the street? Well, that's because that's how they drew the lines. You learn more about that this week right here on Straight Talk. The Church Truly Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, and we'll have Brother James Broom with Black History Facts. And if you'd like to be a guest here on the program, all you got to do is call me or email me at fan922@comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Now, let's have Brother Shannon Jones, and then we'll be back with Brother Johnson talking about Black History Facts presented to us by Brother James Broom, talking about an individual that you need to know about, that you probably never heard about. It was a black man who really was a slaveholder. Don't you go nowhere? We'll see you on the other side.
Hello, everyone, and I'm sorry that I'm not there today. I'm not doing a traffic report for Straight Talk today, but I'm otherwise engaged and unable to be a part of today's show. But I'm so happy that you're continuing to stay with our wonderful podcast, Straight Talk, as we each week try to bring you information that's cutting edge, things that are happening, things that are affecting you, things that you may have missed, something that you may have missed. Straight Talk wants to be that catcher's mitt that catches a couple of the things that you might have missed that are very important, that we want to put right there front and center in front of you, and to keep it on your brain so that you can go out and continue to have the Straight Talk conversation. So Straight Talk is not just Jones and Fan and Jones, but it is a community of people that are talking and speaking truth to power and bringing about change. And so that's why we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want you to stay engaged with us, and we promise you we won't waste your time. We're coming every week to have a family conversation of the things that are happening that are really important in our community, and the things that are happening that will affect our community, not necessarily from within, but from without. So thank you so much for being a part of this Straight Talk community movement, as it is, as we continue to speak truth to power and to lift up those things that would be in the dark and that would ultimately end up affecting us one way or another. And I'm telling you, when we get together, it won't ever be anything but straight talk. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for all that you do and what you're doing. It look like you're up there in the mountains with the union folks. That's what it looks like we are. Trying to look out for the least, the less, the lost, and the workers. Thank you, brother. But we're going to get ready now for Black History Fact with Brother James Broom. Don't you go nowhere. It's Black History with James Broom. I'm Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, right here on Straight Talk with Black History Facts with Brother James Brooms.
This is one of only two known depictions of Anthony Johnson, the first legally recognized African American slaveholder in this country. In 1621, Anthony Johnson had been snatched by slave traders and ended up working as an indentured servant in Virginia. Now, while indentured servants basically were slaves, that was one important difference. When an indentured servant's contract expired or was bought out, they were free, meaning the forced labor, the beatings, the all-around awfulness had an end in sight, and the owners were legally bound to honor it. Because of this system, Anthony Johnson bought his freedom, set up his own plantation, and became the plantation owner who almost single-handedly introduced slavery, as we know it, to the colony of Virginia when one of his indentured servants' contract expired and Johnson wouldn't let him go. Anthony Johnson took this indentured servant to court and sued for his right to own that servant for life, and won. Suddenly, slavery, not indentured servitude, became de facto legal in Virginia, and within 6 years, a whole new depressing chapter of American history was ushered in. Anthony Johnson, slaveholder. They forget about him, but we won't.
It's been Black History Facts with Brother James Broom right here on Straight Talk. Join us each and every Friday from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. with yours truly, Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, and Shannon E. Jones. And do share these Black History Facts with your family and friend, and do tune in to Straight Talk. Won't you? It ain't nothing but straight talk. Men of Higher Standards presents Youth Summit Fall 2021, combating youth violence, health and social awareness, career opportunities, college information, and fun, and food. Listen, you need to be a part of this. Mr. Everhart is going to talk about it in just a minute. He is the president of Men of Higher Standards. Don't you touch that dial. Here's an interview with yours truly, Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, and Mr. Craig Everhart. All right, I'm here with Brother Craig Everhart, the president of Men of Higher Standard. How you doing, Craig?
Doing great today, Pastor.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And as always, you are here, always out here helping young people and trying to make life better for them, to get them to understand what's out here, how they could actually really fall in the wrong snares and end up messing up their life for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And you got this youth summit coming up, the Fall Youth Summit. So you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, thank you for having us today. Of course, we are Men of Higher Standards. We're dedicated to improving the socioeconomic environment in the African American community. And one of the things we do is mentor to young African American men. On this Saturday, October 23rd, from 10 to 3, we are in conjunction with Atlanta Metropolitan State College conducting a youth summit for young men ages 12 to 17. And we're going to talk about a variety of issues pertinent to them, such as youth violence, career opportunities, health and wellness, among other topics. And we want to talk with them. It's not we're going to preach to them. We're going to have them and open up the dialogue for them to let us know how they feel about those subjects so we can work on finding some resolutions for those issues.
As we look at what's going on today with our young people, and we've both been young, younger than I am, but we've both been young, but we're now older, and we've done some things that we're not proud of in our past, and so your work is to help steer young people in the right direction, and this is both for men and women.
Actually, this particular event is for young men ages 12 to 17. Now, in the future, we are going to do events that involve both men and women. But on this occasion, we feel that the young men in our metropolitan area really need some attention, and we want to provide that attention to them.
One of the things that we've done with Clergymen with a Candle that was vision that God had given to Shannon, Pastor Jones, was to go in the neighborhoods and pray with the community, pray for the community, pray where those violent activities have taken place and people have lost their lives. And as we went out a couple of weeks ago, we were at McDaniel and Northside Drive. I know you're familiar with that area. And so, because you're an Atlanta native.
Oh, West Side all day. Yes, sir.
So, but anyway, we went and stopped at the Texaco where the young man was killed some months ago. And we stood there and we prayed. And people came up and we prayed for the men there that were out there. Some was my age, some was younger. And then we witnessed to those young men that was congregating around that a long time ago it was called we hanging out with our boys.
Yeah.
But the boys now have become more of a gang and creating gang activity. So we got a chance to pray with them. We got a chance to witness to them about Christ, to tell them about the love of Christ, what God wants for us, to love you one another as he has loved us, and to teach them that there's a moral side, that there's something after this life. You know, you treasure the things that's world, you try to gain wealth and materialistic thing, fame and popularity, but you're going to leave that here. That mean anything. As the scripture said, what profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul. So we begin to minister to them and talk to them, you know, around those things that were spiritual, because we are more, and our young people, we see them now, they're more focused on the bling and the blang and the fast cars, you know, and that
the why and all that. Yes, sir.
That life. And so that's what we're trying to get them to be. Let me just move. We talked the other week, Shannon and I, we had a discussion about this lifestyle and how these young people come to this lifestyle. And we focus on their living an alternate lifestyle, because they live in a fake lifestyle of the games, because they learn on the gaming and, you know, racing cars on the games. So they get out here in the street and think they can drive like that. They killing folks on the game, so they get out here and they figure like they can kill folks like that. But that's not reality. They're living in a not a real world. They're living in a make-believe world. So how do you tend to address that when you talk to the young men, and you're talking to young men who you're probably doing those same things, you know, through those games, and how those games are affecting their thought process?
Well, and that's one of the purposes of this summit. We want to be proactive in our approach and not reactive. We want to get these young men together and find out what the root cause is of this youth violence that we are seeing, not only in Atlanta, but throughout the nation. And as for me, again, I'm West Side, and I've been through a few things. Like you said, we've done some things we're not actually proud of, but no test, no testimony. So we can truly relate to what they're going through, even though it was years ago when we encountered these issues, but nothing under the sun is new. Right. And so we want to find out what their ideas are. My thoughts, I look at video games. I say it's video games attributed to it. It's peer pressure attributed to it. But that's my thought. We want to put the metal to the wheel and just find out what their thoughts are and what is really causing this gang interaction that we're seeing such an increase of, and see if we can get them other alternatives. That's why we're offering individuals who have been through what they've been through and have become successful in their endeavors, so that they can have other role models that they can look at to be successful in the future as well. Everybody can't be a rapper. Everybody can't be a baller. There are great opportunities out there in this community that we need. We need electricians. We need plumbers. We need architects, lawyers. So there are a lot of opportunities we want to present before these young men so that they can have alternatives other than the violent lifestyle that we see many of them are leading.
Well, you know, me being a man of God, and the spiritual aspect of it is where their faith or their conviction or their belief in terms of the tangible versus there's the intangible, because what we have now is intangible. It's tangible to us now, but it's truly intangible because we can't take nothing away. So you did some things, I did some things, but as young people, very young people, we were drugged to church. I tell people, this, that my mother was a drug addict. she didn't do cocaine, she didn't do marijuana, she didn't do anything, but she drugged me to Sunday school and made sure I was in Sunday school to make sure that our church, even when she didn't go, she made sure we were going to be there to hear the word of God. That's a missing link for these young people. See, they don't have anything to go back to because they haven't been given a foundation. Many of them, not all of them, many of them have not been given a foundation like we were given. So yeah, we went out, we made our mistakes, granted, but we came on back home like the prodigal son. And so when you're dealing with what you're dealing with, and I know that this is not a spiritual-based or religious-based program.
Au contraire, we are Christian based, yes sir.
Okay.
We just don't wear the 10-pound cross on our chest. We try to exemplify Christ through our actions and through our key word, which is execution. And in talking about the church, current events such as this COVID episode have really helped to dilute the youth presence in the church. You know, I see a lot of people have really taken into the streaming of ministry and in impasse. The kids aren't going to church like they should or they were prior to COVID. So that has had a tremendous impact on their spiritual growth. And I'm hoping that in the upcoming months that we will find a solution to this COVID situation so we can get bodies back into the sanctuary where they can be spiritually fed right there as well.
Well, I would say that I'm glad to know that it's Christ-centered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because that's a missing link. Because we have many programs that are out here that's seeking to help. But Jesus said, we came into the world to seek that which was lost, that they might be saved. So I'm glad to see that your program is really spiritual based. At the root of it, not just a conversation, but at the root of what it is. Because I know that you are a man of faith. You stepped out on faith with this organization when it was just a vision. God gave you a vision, and you stepped out, and then you began to work in it, and then God began to send other workers to help you in this vineyard, in this work.
Yeah, and man, you know, I just got a little emotional when I thought about that, because without God, I wouldn't even be here today. Without Him touching me when I was on that corner doing the wrong thing, on my way to hell, ready to die, God stepped in at that moment in my life. And since then, I've grown, haven't been perfect, but He's kept me on the path. And He gave me this vision for this organization. It was all about God. It's all about God. And He is guiding this effort. He is the architect, the pilot. I'm just a passenger. And we're trying to just continue to grow through Christ again, through our actions and not through our word. We have so many people who sit around and do what I say Saturday morning quarterbacking about what we can do about our young people. We need to get out there and execute. Show them that we love them through our actions and not simply through our words. So, yes, sir, there's no clarification. Men of Higher Standards is Christian based.
All right. And I just want to let you know, if you're out there, you have a young man, maybe you have a young man that's going this way, or not going the way that God would want him to go, or the way that you would hope that he would go. This program is designed with them in mind. And it's called a Youth Summit. Yes, I'm reading. It's the Youth Summit 2021. It combat violence. It's the health and social awareness. It's career opportunities for young people, and it's college information for kids that may want to go to college or technical school, because everybody is not bound for college, but they have skills that they can learn to do. So, Brother Craig, and it's going to be from 10 to 3. Free food, free fun, and what's this right here, sagging?
Swag, so let's swag, because this is for the young people. See? And let me just say, I would be remiss if I did not mention our great partners, Atlanta Metropolitan State College. Dr. Lewis, Dr. White, Miss Combs. They have been extraordinary. And this is one of the best kept secrets in Atlanta Metropolitan State College, offering a superb education at a reasonable price. So I just thank God for them coming into and partnering with us and allowing us to use their beautiful facility for this event. So kudos to them for their efforts as well.
And I just want to just say that they're going to meet you at the Edwin A. Thomas Senior Student Activity Center. And that's 1630 Metropolitan Parkway, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia 30310. That's Edwin A. Thompson Senior Student Activity Center, 630 Metropolitan Parkway, Southwest Atlanta 30310. Now, if you want more information, here's Craig, and you can call him at 404-210-0200. Okay, 404-210-0200. That's his number.
That's right.
Call, won't you? And I do want to just leave with this final appeal. If you don't want to be a Sunday morning quarterback, and if you don't want to be a person that talk about it but not being about it, they're being about it. Maybe you don't have the resources. Maybe you don't have really truly desire to get your hands dirty, but they do. And you know someone who needs this, make sure that you tell them they need to be there. Why don't you bring them there?
Amen. Amen.
Bring them there.
Amen.
And maybe Craig they'll let you sit in a section, and maybe you may learn something, and maybe you may feel like, hey, this is something that I want to be a part of. That's the Men of Higher Standards. Again, Craig's number is 44210-0200, and he'd love for you to be a part of Men of Higher Standards and a part of this program. Craig, you got any final words you want to say?
Just some final thoughts, Pastor. As always, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this great platform that you present to the community. Thank you for the great work that you do on a day-to-day basis. And again, we are looking for willing participants in this. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. But we got some great laborers, and we're looking to add more to our fold. Again, thank you for this opportunity, and looking forward to working with you again in the near future. Thank you, sir.
I'm looking forward to working with you too. But I want to say, my Steelers.
Don't start it.
My Steelers. Must be just, Craig is an Oakland Raider fan. I'm a Steelers fan. Shannon is just with the real losers, the Falcons.
And we beat the best out the Steelers. Let's put that on record this year. So I had my purple shirt on, but I have a Raider gray. I didn't want to put him into a little nervous around that Raider gray, so I chose to adhere to the purple today.
Well, I appreciate it so very much. But as always, thanks you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, hey. Thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to working with you in the future on other things with Men of Higher Standards.
Well, thank you, Brother Craig Craig Everhart. Craig is the president of Men of Higher Standards. And won't you join him this Saturday at the Atlanta Metro College and be a part. Bring young men out. Young men come out and be a part. Let's bring a positivity in our community. Thank you, Craig, and the work that you and the Men of Higher Standards are doing to bring about a change. Not talking about it, but being about it. Well, we're going to get ready to now go into the segment on gerrymandering. Let's just talk about gerrymandering before we go in there. Last week we talked about gerrymandering, the maps, and how the maps make a difference in terms of where you vote. Every 10 years they do the census, right? So we just had the census. So now the census count is over with. Now they're going to redraw the line. Every state in the United States capital will be drawing lines for the upcoming races next year. So whoever's representing you this year, they may be drawing out the line. So people are going to be trying to bid for their territory to make sure that they stay in and others get out. You need to know how that works. Because someone told me one time, I was voting at this precinct right down the street from my house, but then they got me voting on the other side of town. They drew you out of that district when they redrew the line. Learn today what it's all about, how it's happening. It's a threat on our democracy. We'll be back on the other side as we get ready to watch about gerrymandering.
Federal judges this past week ordered a redrawing of the lines between congressional districts in North Carolina, while the Supreme Court agreed to hear an appeal of a similar ruling in Texas. And then there's Pennsylvania, which features a congressional map that some critics say looks like a cartoon. Our cover story is reported by Mo Rocca.
Goofy's over there, and he's kicking Donald.
No, what? I thought that Goofy was here doing the kicking. You think this is Goofy kicking Donald?
I don't know.
This is not a Rorschach test, and these are not patients.
Oh, those are his ears flapping.
Oh, the ears are flapping. Oh, okay, I got it.
They're suburban Philadelphia voters who live next door to Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District, nicknamed Goofy Kicking Donald for its absurd, well, you can see why.
Wait a minute. Just, would Goofy ever kick Donald?
No,
I don't think Goofy...
Not and stay in the Disney World.
This district is one of the most gerrymandered in America.
What we're looking at is a disgrace, a political disgrace. There's no reason for that kind of gerrymandering. Here it is, folks, right in front of you.
And welcome to Gerrymandering 101. I promise you this won't hurt much. Gerrymandering is the manipulation of voting district lines, usually to give one party an advantage over the other. The word comes from Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, who in 1812 signed off on this salamander-shaped district, hence the term gerrymander, which sounds a lot better than gerrymander. Okay, there are 435 members in the House of Representatives. Pennsylvania has a lot of people, so it gets 18 House seats. Like so. Now, some of these shapes, not just the 7th, are pretty wacky. We can all agree on that. Now, I know you're asking, why not just lay a nice rectangular grid over Pennsylvania? Problem solved, right? Well, you can't do that because people don't live evenly spread out. You got a lot of people over in Philly, a bunch over in Pittsburgh, not a lot of people in those places with no dots. Personally, I'd live over in Hershey. And each district has to have the same number of people. For that reason, and others we'll get to later, the shapes of districts are almost never going to be perfect squares. But how these shapes got to be so wacky is the issue here. Pennsylvania Democrats say the Republican-controlled state house drew these lines, or gerrymandered them, to create as many safe Republican seats as possible. Last election, Republicans won little more than half of the statewide vote, but the lion's share of congressional seats, 13 out of 18. Thank you for listening, and now let's return to our angry voters.
We're not getting the representation that we were intended to get, and the politicians just jiggle it around to meet their needs, not our needs.
They're angry because they say their Democratic-leaning communities were deliberately kept out of the 7th and lumped into the heavily Republican 16th district, ensuring that both went red.
It causes people, I think, to wonder, why should they even go out to vote? Is my vote going to count?
It was done to us personally, and there is no rational justification for that other than blind, naked power.
But I do think it's very difficult for us to try to draw these lines.
Both parties are guilty of gerrymandering.
Notorious examples of gerrymandering.
And both parties have long decried it.
The fact is, gerrymandering has become a national scandal.
It is absolutely essential that we block the gerrymandering ways of the Democratic Party.
But increasingly, the discussion around gerrymandering has been about the threat it poses to American democracy itself. Few current representatives want to talk about it. Iowa's Rod Blum does.
We shouldn't have to rig the system in our favor, or the Democrats shouldn't have to rig the system in their favor.
Blum is a Tea Party Republican who represents Iowa's 1st, a Democratic-leaning district. Blum says he can't afford to ignore any of his constituents.
With gerrymandering, the politician knows that they can be extreme right or extreme left and get reelected. If the district was more like mine, split evenly, then you're looking at every bill. What's a Republican think of this? What's a Democrat think of this? What's an independent think of it?
His is not a typical district. Nationwide gerrymandering is one reason that the number of competitive congressional seats, those where both parties have a good shot of winning, has plunged over the past 20 years from 164 to just 72. Now keep an eye on Pennsylvania's 7th. Those district lines we've been talking about are redrawn every 10 years, right after the census, usually by the state legislature, in a process known as redistricting. Get a load of how the 7th has changed over the years. Few know this process better than Kim Brace. For more than 40 years, he's been hired, mostly by Democrats, to help draw congressional districts. He was the only map maker we identified that was willing to talk to us on camera. You've got a lot of power in your pen.
That's true. It's not your pen. It's now a mouse.
It's okay. It's
okay?
a mouse.
It's a mouse.
And armed with mountains of voter data, it's become more science than art. Theoretically, you could say to a Republican incumbent, listen, the 5300 block of River Road is a lot more Democratic now. Let's cut that out.
Sure.
When we draw the map.
Sure, that's possible. That's possible.
But Brace says there are a lot of factors that have to be considered. For instance, districts have to be contiguous. Communities of interest should be kept together. And how about this one?
Incumbent requests and incumbent protection is something that the courts have recognized is a fact of redistricting life.
Incumbent protection, like they're spotted owls.
Or something along that line, yes.
But this was precisely the rationale back in 2001 when, to protect the seat of Illinois Democrat Bobby Rush, Kim Brace cut out this residential block, home to a young primary challenger named Barack Obama.
You gerrymandered the future president of the United States out of a congressional district.
Right. So he then went for U.S. Senate and use that elevation to then become president.
Not even a president could do what you did.
Probably not, I guess.
The general perception, it seems, not just from Democrats, from a lot of Republicans who want limits on gerrymandering, is that gerrymandering is bad for democracy.
It's not always the case, but one person's gerrymander is another one's beautiful art creation.
There may be no better example of this than Brace's most famous or infamous creation, Illinois' 4th, better known as the earmuffs. It was drawn to comply with the Voting Rights Act, which mandates that racial minorities be able to elect one of their own. And so he connected 2 Latino neighborhoods on Chicago's west side by this narrow highway corridor.
So we're in the 4th right now.
That's correct.
But you say there, over here, I'm in the Illinois 7th. And now I'm in the Illinois 4th. Now I'm in the Illinois 5th. So 3 different districts right there.
That's correct, right there.
That's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Back in the 1990s, it was racial gerrymandering like this that dominated the discussion. Then in 2010, the GOP launched an ambitious campaign to win control of state governments and redraw the lines in their favor. They succeeded in a big way.
It was a sea change. We've now seen Congress being in control by the Republicans for this entire decade.
While Republican House candidates won about half of the nationwide vote in 2016, they took 55% of the seats, 241 to the Democrats' 194. But, and this is important, even if lines were not being drawn to favor Republicans, Democrats would still be at something of a disadvantage, says Stanford political scientist Jonathan Roden.
Suburbs and exurbs.
That's because of where they live.
Democrats have been clustered in cities in the industrialized states ever since the New Deal. Ever since FDR, cities have become more Democratic and rural areas more Republican.
Roden studies how increasingly Republicans are spread across rural areas and Democrats packed into urban areas. Consider the influence on a state like Missouri.
The Democrats are highly concentrated in St. Louis and Kansas City. The gubernatorial elections are always very close. It's a place that Democrats can win statewide. But the best they can hope for in an 8-seat congressional delegation is 3 seats, and the current outcome is 2.
So is the issue gerrymandering or geography?
It's geography and gerrymandering. In order to understand the outcomes we see, we have to understand how those two things interact.
Hey, ho, ho, gerrymandering has to go.
But it's gerrymandering that's before the U.S. Supreme Court right now. A ruling is expected this spring. And Iowa's Rod Blum is willing to risk any advantage gerrymandering currently gives his party. If putting curbs on partisan gerrymandering meant ceding control of the House to the Democrats, how would you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. We need to recruit good candidates, and we need to get out there, and we need to do a good job of governing, and we need to sell our message to the voters.
Losing an election is no small thing.
And I think the opposite. I think, if you lose an election, it's okay. That's the way our government is set up, not to have these people be here 30, 40, 50 years.
As for our voters in Pennsylvania, the state Supreme Court is considering redrawing the map. For them, a decision can't come soon enough.
Everyone wants to be treated fairly. Gerrymandering isn't fair. It's cheating. It's taking our votes and putting them where they won't make a difference.
Well, as Shannon said earlier, we just want to keep you informed about what you may not know, and maybe what you know, but you're not really paying attention. Pay attention. Get ready. Register to vote. We got a very important election coming up next year in your state house races and your congressional races. It's midterm elections. Find out who's going to be your representative after they get through drawing those lines. You see how crazy those lines are? You may be out and thinking that you're in, and you may be out. Pay attention. If you haven't voted, do vote. Register to vote. Make sure you do what you can do to protect our democracy. We are counting on you. This has been nothing but Straight Talk with Church of the Great Fan, the Preacher Man, and my co-host Shannon E. Jones, who will join me next week after he come out of the mountains. You're up there in the mountains with the union and helping for workers and fighting for workers and workers' rights. America is a union. It ain't been nothing but what? Straight Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Craig Fan at FANN922@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shannon Jones and Greg Fan, the Preacher Man.